So for my article that we had to choose a journal, I chose to do some digging deeper into what is an intellectual disability, how can parents help with transition, like new schools or moving or anything like that. And also I decided I wanted to kind of dig more into like Down syndrome because like from what I've learned and from what my article said, Down syndrome is one of the hardest ones to understand and cope. And one of the biggest things that somebody with Down syndrome struggles with is transition. And so, I don't know why, but my phone and my Windows computer will not download Screenomatic. So, we're going to do it this way just so I can make sure I get it in. But, what is an intellectual disability, you may ask? An intellectual disability is an ID term used when a person has special limitations in cognitive functions and other skills. These skills might include communication, social, and even self-care. Social and self-care are two of the major ones that I see on a daily basis. I work with 8 disabled ladies who all suffer from traumatic brain injuries. Most of them shower on a daily basis, which is one of the most important self-care skills they have. But some do not. Some of our clients do have communication issues and some don't. But like I said, individual disabilities and intellectual disabilities are based individually on the person. With these limitations, it might cause a person to develop slowly, learn more slowly, or even learn different from other students. I was in all special ed classes going through high school, and I felt like I didn't need to be placed there, but they placed me there just because that's what my disabilities labeled me as. Intellectual disabilities can happen before the child turns 18, but also sometimes even before they are born. But with technology these days, there are ways of finding out whether or not your child may struggle with either Down syndrome or some stuff like that. Screening for autism spectrum disorder in children with Down syndrome mainly talks about how children or the child with Down syndrome are at more of a higher risk to be on the spectrum of autism than maybe, say, somebody with a reading disability. But from my research and my knowledge, they pretty much label everybody on the spectrum because at some point or another, people tend to be on the spectrum. They are often diagnosed at much later times other than other children due to difficult things like the ADA spectrum, there's just a whole bunch of things that cause it to be much later. Education, psychologists in communities supporting parents of children with Down syndrome through transitions is basically, and I agree with every sentence that is on here, that we need to, 1, provide advice and much needed support for each parent from the earliest stage of life with somebody with with an intellectual disability, because those children did not ask to be special or be labeled with an intellectual disability. And so, from my experience, it's tough raising a child with an ADA or a intellectual disability. One of my best friends' mom is raising a daughter with several different issues. The biggest one is Rett, and it is definitely touching. But we also need to improve the parental access to psychology advice through different partnerships with parents, voluntary activities, organizations. This will help to develop and implant new practices through different partnerships and agencies. We also should and want and need to create new ways of working effectively with each parent. Early years. Early years was definitely talked about quite a bit in my article, and I definitely agree, because from the early stages, these children are developing slowly, and so early stages and early years are important because, 1, it comes with anybody that has an intellectual disability. 2, they want to get as many people involved as early as possible because they are going to need extra support in the long run. It's not an easy battle. I work with disabled adults. I have volunteered with Special Olympics forever. I strongly believe that we need to be in the long run support, because it's not easy. They really start to build everything from 1 years old to 3 years old is like the crucial time in the early years, and that's when you want to connect the most. And then some facts that I found that were in my article, and then stuff. But Down syndrome is a genetic condition where people or someone is born with an extra chromosome. The exact cause of an extra chromosome is definitely not been answered, so it's still unknown. 1 in 691 babies born in the U.S. are born with Down syndrome. There are over 400,000 people living in the United States that are affected by Down syndrome. And back in the 1983, your lifespan, if you had Down syndrome, was only expected till 25. That is 2 years older than me. That is sad. But today, your life expectancy, if you have Down syndrome, is up to 60. And then children and adults with Down syndrome definitely will share more common features, but usually will resemble one of their immediate family members. But the biggest thing that I got from everything I looked at is we need to be there during the transition period for these people, because it is tough. They struggle with transition. We need to get them involved with family groups, church groups, early years, school groups, but mainly we just need to be there because they will struggle. And I see this on a daily basis of a few of my athletes who struggle with transitions. So, sorry, this was probably not the best, but it's good. It's what I needed to get done.